Okay, so if you've ever, poured your heart into crafting this amazing piece of content, maybe a thread, maybe a carousel, only to watch it completely tank the second you add a link, well, you know exactly the kind of frustration we're talking about today. We are doing a deep dive into a playbook from creators who basically hit a wall. They realized the old way of doing social media marketing is just not working anymore on platforms like X, like LinkedIn. I mean, the source material really lays it out. They treated their posts like billboards, right? Always pointing somewhere else. And the result in 2023, they called it a pathetic trickle of clicks. Content just
Mm.
vanishing into the algorithmic abyss.
Yeah, that traditional playbook,
Mhm.
you know, do something cool on social, try to drive traffic back to your website, it's fundamentally broken.
Mhm.
And it's broken because of how these platforms actually work now. When you drop that external link in, you're basically sending a signal. You're telling the algorithm, hey, this piece of content isn't the main event. It's just a bridge to somewhere else.
Mm.
And since the platform's number one goal is keeping people on the platform longer, well, anything that encourages users to leave gets penalized. Your reach just gets buried.
That's such a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? That the thing you thought was the whole point was actually hurting you, actively sabotaging your own reach. So, okay, if the platforms are fighting against the old model, what's the fix? Well, the solution they landed on is, well, it sounds counterintuitive, zero-click content. And the results they saw, pretty dramatic. Reach on X apparently tripled. Those LinkedIn carousels, suddenly getting saved hundreds of times, almost instantly.
Exactly. So our mission for you today, listening in, is really to unpack this specific strategy.
Mhm.
We need to get into the mindset behind it first. Then look at the actual formats they use, like what does this zero-click content look like? And finally, the tactics, the nitty-gritty of making it work to get those kinds of results.
Right. Before we jump into the formats, though, let's make sure we're crystal clear on what zero-click content actually means. Is this just, I don't know, a new spin on clickbait or something fundamentally different?
Oh, it's fundamentally different. It's a total commitment, really. It means delivering the full meal, not just an appetizer, as they put it. It has to be a self-contained experience. The person reading or scrolling needs to get something tangible, like a useful framework, a complete thought, maybe a mini lesson, without ever needing to click away. You're basically guaranteeing right there in the post that the payoff, the punchline, it's all delivered up front, not hidden behind some link.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So you're trading that friction of asking for a click. You're trading it for what I sometimes call trust equity. You give away the good stuff first, and that builds instant rapport, doesn't it? You remove that big ask because asking someone to click away these days with all the distractions, that is a big ask. And instead, you're kind of using generosity as a growth hack. People start thinking, wow, this person just gave me value, no strings attached. Maybe I should follow them.
Precisely. And that requires this huge mindset shift. You have to move from thinking, how do I drive traffic, to how do I build gravity, right? The source material was super clear on this. You have to stop seeing platforms like X and LinkedIn as just, auxiliary promotional tools like billboards. Instead, you need to treat them as your primary content channels. This is where your best ideas debut, fully formed, ready to consume right there. And naturally, that means your metrics have to shift too. You need to let go of those vanity metrics like website clicks and focus instead on what we could call depth metrics. Things like comments that actually spark a real discussion, saves, which signal that people find it valuable enough to come back to, even DMs, that shows a genuine connection. They talked about the compounding effect too. Like one example was a thread on productivity frameworks. It got saved 500 times, and those saves, they kept generating mentions and boosting reach for weeks after the initial post. It wasn't just a one-off spike.
Okay, so if the goal is building gravity, not just driving clicks, we need different kinds of content structures. What do these primary content channels actually look like in practice? The playbook details 6 core formats that seem to work really well for this formats that prioritize keeping people on the platform and giving them those quick, valuable wins. First up, what they call the bread and butter thread and carousel guides. These seem to be the main tools for delivering that deeper value without making people leave. It lets you do long form storytelling, but broken down into these short, digestible bursts. And the structure sounds key. You needed a really strong hook to stop the scroll. Then, quick context. Then the body, broken into really small chunks like 2 to 4 lines max per tweet or slide. You deliver these little micro wins along the way. And crucially, you end with a zero leak CTA. We'll get more into that later. Apparently, threads work great for that conversational vibe on X, while carousels are more polished, like these swipe magnets for LinkedIn.
Right. Then the second format is the value-dense single post. Think of these as quick-hit powerhouses. The rule here is really strict. One strong idea per post. That's it. So something super practical, like here's the 5-question framework I use to validate business ideas. Bang. Done. These apparently get tons of saves because they're so easy to consume, like a 30-second win that people can immediately bookmark and use later. Super high utility.
Yeah, I can see that. The third format sounds great for building that connection. Narrative plus teaching posts. So you're mixing storytelling with actual substance. Like maybe you start with a personal story, the time I totally bombed a pitch presentation, but then you weave in the actionable lessons like, here are the 3 fixes I use next time. Adding that emotion, that human element, it makes the content more relatable, right? And apparently it boosts read time and comments, which, the algorithm absolutely loves.
hmm Then moving into things that are more visual, the fourth format is visual summaries and framework graphics. These are powerful because they take complex ideas and just condense them down, make them super digestible, super shareable. The types that seem to work best are things like process flows, maybe mapping out my 6-step content creation pipeline visually, or comparison matrices. The key here is that the visual itself encourages people to pause, maybe zoom in. That boosts dwell time, which is a huge positive signal to the platform. And originality matters. People save graphics that feel unique, not just generic templates. Okay, format number 5, the stuff designed specifically for bookmarking. Lists, playbooks, and swipe files. People love saving things they think they'll need later as a reference. To make these work, the formatting has to be ruthless. Use bolded numbers or clear headings. Keep the descriptions really short, like 1 or 2 sentences max. Absolutely avoid big walls of text. They need to be easy to scan and save. Think reference material, not an essay.
Gotcha. Skimmable reference. And the final one, number 6, is conversation starters. So, not every single post has to be this in-depth guide. These are more strategic questions designed to just spark a bit of debate, get some insights from your audience. Something like, what's the one content myth you really wish would just die? You use these to kind of warm up your audience, maybe test out ideas for future content, and also show that you're actually listening, not just broadcasting. Builds that trust score. Okay, so we have the formats, but they all rely on stopping someone mid-scroll, right? People are skimming, they decide in like a second. So let's talk about the absolute sharp end of the spear here, the hook. The playbook breaks hooks down into 4 main buckets, which is helpful for ensuring you have some variety. First, you've got the contrarian hook. This challenges a common belief, like why links are actually sabotaging your social growth. Intriguing, right? Then the practical hook, focused on efficiency or results, the 3-minute framework that doubled my post saves. Very tangible. Third is the curiosity hook, hinting at some kind of insider knowledge. The algorithm hack I stumbled upon completely by accident makes you want to know more. And finally, the authority hook, which leverages your credibility. How I grew 10K followers without using a single link. These templates are designed purely to stop that thumb mid-scroll.
Absolutely. And once you stop it with a hook, you need to keep them reading, even though, let's be honest, most people online don't want to read. So every single one of these formats relies on what they call the skimmability rule. That means be really deliberate with your formatting. Use lots of white space, double line breaks between paragraphs. Keep your chunks short, 1 to 3 sentences is ideal. Use bolding on key phrases to guide the eye. And maybe use emojis strategically as visual anchors. This isn't just about looking nice. It directly impacts how much of your content people actually consume. Higher completion rates tell the algorithm your content is good, and that boosts visibility.
Okay, this all leads perfectly into the next critical piece, the no-leak CTA principle. A traditional call to action like click the link in bio deliberately sends people away. It leaks traffic, kills your momentum on the platform. The no-leak idea is the opposite. It's about keeping all that engagement, all that energy right there within the platform, feeding those signals the algorithm wants to see. But let me just push back on that for a second. If the end goal is still conversions somewhere down the line, getting subscribers, customers, whatever, how do we make sure these no-leak CTAs aren't just busy work? Are we just collecting likes and saves instead of actual leads?
That's a great question, and it's actually where the strategy gets quite clever. The no-leak CTAs aren't just about engagement for engagement's sake. They often act as a qualification mechanism. So instead of a weak click here, you use something like comment guide below, and I'll DM you the full checklist. What does that do? It filters for people who are genuinely interested, who are willing to take a small action. They're higher intent. Other really effective ones are simple prompts like, save this post for later. That's a direct, powerful signal to the algorithm. Or, follow me for part 2 next week. That builds anticipation and encourages follows. But one of the best, often, is just asking for opinions. Tell me where you disagree in the comments. That sparks organic conversation, boosts visibility, and shows you're open to discussion. They shared an example where a thread ended with, "Comment your best hook idea below." It apparently generated something like 200 replies. That's vastly more interaction and signal strength and a simple click here would ever get.
Okay, I see how that works now. It's engagement with a purpose. But wow, creating this kind of deep, self-contained content. It sounds like a lot more work than just writing a quick teaser and dropping a link. How do you actually sustain this without burning out?
Yeah, it definitely requires a different workflow. The playbook suggests a pretty manageable weekly cadence, though. Aim for maybe 3 to 5 posts per week across your main platforms. That might break down into, say, 2 high-effort pieces, your threads or carousels, which take more time. Then maybe 2 lower-effort pieces like those single-idea posts or a quick visual. And then perhaps 1 wild card, like a conversation starter. The key seems to be batching the work. Maybe set aside Mondays for planning topics, Tuesdays and Wednesdays for actually creating the content, and then schedule it out for Thursdays and Fridays, which are often good days for engagement.
Right, batching makes sense. But okay, here's the million-dollar question, the one everyone listening is probably thinking. I've built all this gravity, people are engaging, saving my stuff. But how do I actually get paid if I'm never sending them to a sales page or a sign-up form?
Yeah, that's crucial. Zero-click doesn't mean zero conversion. It just means you handle the nurturing part on the platform first, before asking for a bigger commitment. They call it the soft funnel strategy. You share value generously, you build that familiarity, that trust we talked about, and then, only then, do you subtly guide people towards the next step. And this is where those clever on-platform lead magnet tactics come in. Using DMs and comments is huge here. So instead of a link, you say, "Comment template below, and I'll DM you my free hook swipe file." Again, it filters for motivated people without forcing an immediate off-platform click. They have to raise their hand first. And another key tactic is using what they termed strategic warm mentions instead of actual links. So you might reference your newsletter or a product naturally within your content, but without providing a clickable link. Maybe something like, "This framework is actually straight from my Growth Insider newsletter. If you want more like this, just DM me the word SB and I'll get you added." Sparks curiosity. People who are genuinely interested will take that extra step to DM you. And because you've already built trust, they're much more likely to follow through. They mentioned getting 50 new newsletter subs from just one viral thread that used this kind of warm mention in the DMs.
That's really smart. It keeps the friction low, but still provides a path.
Okay, before we wrap this up, the source material was also really upfront about the mistakes they made when starting with zero-click. We should definitely cover those pitfalls. First one they mentioned was dumping too much information. They tried cramming like an entire playbook into a single massive 20-plus tweet thread. What happened? People got overwhelmed and just stopped reading.
Yeah.
Content density can backfire.
Yeah, less is often more, even in long-form threads. Break it down.
Second mistake, ignoring variety. They apparently got stuck just doing threads over and over, and their reach started to plateau. The algorithm seemed to prefer seeing a mix of formats, those quick hits, the visuals, the conversation starters, not just the same thing all the time. Keeps things fresh for the audience, too. And the third mistake, I think probably a lot of us can relate to this one, being overly polished or corporate. Their initial posts were apparently too corporate, too buttoned up, and they just didn't connect. People on social media, they follow people, right? Not press releases. Injecting your actual personality, those me vibes, a bit of authenticity, maybe even some humor that almost always trumps trying to be perfectly polished. Don't be afraid to sound like yourself. So if we kind of boil this whole strategy down, what is it really about? I think zero-click forces you to be clearer in your thinking, forces you towards generosity in what you share, and that ultimately builds the most valuable currency in this crazy online world, which is trust. It also just aligns better with what the platforms actually want, which is to keep users engaged and immersed right there.
Yeah, it's like you're turning your social profile into your actual home base, your stronghold, instead of just using it as a signpost pointing elsewhere. And that consistency, that willingness to give value without gating everything, that seems to be the key to making social media work for you, not against you.
Exactly. It's about building that gravity. So maybe here's a final thought for everyone listening to take away and chew on. If building gravity is the goal, what's the single biggest, most valuable idea or piece of insight that you're currently holding back, maybe saving for a blog post or a lead magnet, that you could actually give away completely in a zero-click format this week? Answering that might just be the first step to fundamentally changing your entire approach to social media.
This episode is brought to you by Whoop Social, the all-in-one social media tool that saves you time and skyrockets your growth. Stop wasting hours posting manually. With Whoop Social, you can schedule, publish, and track performance across every platform, all from one simple dashboard. Whether you're a creator, brand, or agency, Whoop Social helps you stay consistent, reach more people, and grow faster automatically. Don't wait. Join thousands of smart marketers and start free today at whoopsocial.com.